And he insists he hasn't been silenced yet.
As we mentioned, the ground invasion of Iraq has begun in force. Joining us now, Vice Admiral Dennis McGinn, NBC News military analyst. And Admiral, let's start with what we know and what we don't know about this ground invasion.
I think that's really key, John, because what we do know is what we are getting from people on the ground and some television cameras up here in the vicinity of Baghdad, mostly the effects, but not in a detailed way, of some of those strikes by Tomahawk missiles and manned aircraft. What we know is down along the border of Kuwait and Iraq, also reported by people on the ground, embedded journalists, and also from observations from camera gear down there. What we don't know is what's going on out here in the western part of Iraq, what is happening inside the city limits, any other types of special operations force activities. We've got to remember that there are basically 4 campaigns going on. There's a special operations campaign in which covertness is absolutely essential to success. There's an air campaign, which we've talked about quite a lot. The ground campaign, which is getting underway, apparently very successful, down here in the southern part of Iraq. And then finally, the psychological operations campaign.
Well, let's talk about the southern part of Iraq there. Are you surprised by the lack of Iraqi opposition?
I'm really not. I don't think the key centers of gravity that the Iraqi regime, such as they are, and that still is uncertain, are willing to defend down here. There's been a lot of discussion about the divisions within the various sections of Iraq, and I believe that the expectation, and appropriately so, was that in the southern part of Iraq there would be the least amount of opposition.
It is sounding again tonight like it's still a possibility that the U.S. may have gotten Saddam Hussein. What do you make of all of this?
I think that it could be a possibility, but I think that the commander, General Franks, and his great team out there are going to go with the assumption that the campaign timelines need to proceed as planned. They need to seize opportunity as it presents itself in the southern part of Iraq, take as many key critical nodes of transportation, the city of Basra, for example, communication, and then also to encounter whatever Iraqi resistance there may be. At the same time, continuing the attacks against key leadership, command and control, and communications up in the north.
Seems to be going well.
Absolutely. That's my assessment, John.
All right, Admiral. Thanks very much. We'll talk a little later. Now, it became a household name during the last Gulf War, the Patriot missile. At that time, it was a new and, according to the Pentagon, pinpoint-accurate missile defense system. But it never quite lived up to its reputation. A new and improved version is back. Is it ready for round 2? Here's Rob Stafford.
These are the Patriots, designed to shoot down and destroy incoming Iraqi missiles, which might be carrying chemical or biological agents. And today, when Saddam Hussein fired at U.S. troops in Kuwait, the Patriots were called to action. U.S. officials say they hit their targets.
2 missiles have landed in Kuwait this morning.
Yeah, Scud. Okay, we see the Scud.
In the last Gulf War, at first, the Patriot was touted as a stunning success.
42 Scuds engaged, 41 intercepted.
You have to rebuild the house.
Others thought it was not the defender the government hoped it would be. It turned out the Patriot often exploded without hitting its target. It didn't stop missiles bound for Israel. And it was a Patriot that failed to stop the incoming Scud that hit this Army barracks, killing 28 American soldiers. Phil Coyle is the former Assistant Secretary of Defense. He headed all Pentagon weapons testing from 1994 to 2001. He says the new Patriot, which has undergone a massive redesign, is better.
The latest version of the Patriot, so-called PAC-3, is faster than the old Patriot. It's a very fast missile. It has better guidance and control systems than the old one did. And it has a wonderful radar, a very special radar that has great range and resolution power.
Coyle says in testing, the upgraded Patriots hit their targets 45% of the time. But they've never been used before in combat until now.
The war in Iraq came before the Army had completed the test program with real Scud missiles.
How they continue to perform could mean the difference between life and death, not only for the soldiers in the Gulf, but also for the people of Kuwait, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Bahrain, Israel, and Jordan.
Even though the the Patriot isn't perfect, it will definitely be better than nothing.
It's Rob Stafford. Now, the State Department got some welcome news from Turkey today, but is it too little too late? NBC News correspondent George Lewis is in Turkey with more on that story. George?
John, Turkey's parliament approved the overflight rights that the U.S. was looking for its planes so that U.S. planes operating off of carriers in the Mediterranean and out of Europe could fly directly over Turkey into northern Iraq. The question you raise, whether it's too little, too late, remains to be seen. The U.S. progress in Iraq has been so rapid. The question now is, will the approval by Parliament of the Turkish airspace do much good? The answer is probably yes, because what the U.S. needs to do is ferry large numbers of troops into northern Iraq once airfields are secured there so that it can keep the peace. There's been a very tense situation in northern Iraq between the Turks and the Kurds. The U.S. wants troops on the ground to kind of stabilize that situation, John.
Give me an idea of what the mood is in Turkey with regard to the United States, George, now.
We have been talking to a number of people around this town where we are in Diyarbakir, in eastern Turkey, and in other cities, and the mood is almost uniform. The Turks do not want war, but now that it's begun, they seem resigned to the fact that Turkey should participate. Turkey has been a long ally of the United States, a 50-year relationship in NATO. The Turks feel that they need to go along with the U.S. on this now that the war has begun.
All right, NBC's George Lewis in Turkey. George, we'll get back to you a little later as well. We have word tonight about an al-Qaeda suspect and a worldwide alert. NBC's Pete Williams reports on that from Washington.
As the police and National Guard fan out nationwide to protect potential terror targets, the FBI tonight is urgently seeking their help in finding a man believed to be a top al-Qaeda operative who could be in the U.S. He's identified as Adnan G. El Shukrit Juma, 27 years old, around 5.5 feet tall, speaks fluent English, and as medic, he uses an inhaler. Investigators believe he's another Mohammed Atta, the key planner in the 9/11 attacks. And even more worrisome, he's believed to be a trained pilot. One of his Arabic nicknames is Jafar the Pilot. FBI agents today searched this house in Miramar, Florida, Shukrit Juma's last known address, questioning his parents. Agents believe he was in the United States after 9/11, but they don't know where he is now. His brother, Nidal, says Shukrit Juma is no terrorist.
Is he a pilot?
No.
No? Did he go to flight school here? No.
Even so, captured al-Qaeda members have told U.S. interrogators that Shukrit Juma would be central to the planning for any further terror attacks against Americans, either here or overseas. In Arizona, meantime, extra security was deployed to the Palo Verde power plant near Phoenix, the nation's largest nuclear generator, a response officials say to a specific threat.
It was obviously serious enough and deemed to be credible enough that we've got several the appropriate federal agencies investigating.
Tonight, officials say that threat now appears less credible. In the Northeast today, police and National Guardsmen from 3 states rode commuter trains and subways into New York, concerned that mass transit could be a target.
We have close to 4,000 New York State National Guard troops deployed everywhere from the subways of New York to the borders of Canada.
In Los Angeles, Mayor James Hahn inspected the city's water supply, where testing and security are both up.
Hundreds of tests being performed, make sure that if anything does contaminate the water supply, we know about it instantly.
That was the south side of 108.
Washington, D.C. put its police officers on 12-hour shifts, and signs went up from Homeland Security with a number to use for calling in tips. And nationwide, extra security was especially visible at airports. Traffic backed up for half an hour this morning at Seattle-Tacoma as the National Guard searched cars. Cities and states determined to prevent acts of terror.
Now, America's attack in Iraq is sparking outrage around the world. Today, French President Jacques Chirac warned that the conflict will have serious consequences for the future. Russia's President Vladimir Putin called it a big political mistake. Thousands demonstrated against the U.S. decision to fight, and there's anger here at home. NBC's Rob Stafford again followed one man's experience as he made his feelings known.
A cry for peace at a time of war. Throughout the day and across the country, thousands of anti-war demonstrators took to the streets.
It finally hits home that this has started and that war is underway.
In New York, under pouring rain, Max Uhlenbeck was rallying his troops for a battle he seemingly lost. A student coordinator in the anti-war movement, he and others have spent months trying to prevent the strike on Iraq.
Now that the war is here, what is the biggest way to protest?
I think what we have to continue doing and what we've been doing is we have to keep coming out on the streets.
These are bilingual?
Yeah. Planning today's protest started last night as the first missiles were launched. This is the headquarters of United for Peace and Justice, an organization that says it's coordinating hundreds of thousands of peace activists around the nation.
If this happens tonight, if it looks like that the bombs are going to start to drop this evening.
As the hours ticked away towards the president's deadline last night, Max and other activists contemplated how best to respond to a war now imminently here.
40 protesters arrested in New York today, many more around the country. Is this upping the ante?
Sure, I think it's definitely upping the ante, and the ante will continue to be raised every single day from now on.
Is it too little, too late?
It's never too little, too late.
Indeed, today, over 500 protesters were arrested in San Francisco, 100 in Philadelphia, and around the country, many skipped school, blocked office buildings and roads in civil disobedience.
Not much sleep the last 12 hours, obviously.
Max spent all night on the phone making sure all these people come today.
Hey, listen, have you gotten status on Times Square yet?
And he's still on the phone.
You know, it's a few hundred people.
Max believes that the start of the war should spur Americans into more protest.
How old are you?
I'm 23 years old.
What do you say to the 23-year-old American soldier who's putting his life on the line tonight?
We're all Americans. We're all people. I don't think anybody wants to die unnecessarily. I see this very much as fighting a fight for them. If we were to stop this war, it would mean saving a lot of American lives.
Is it unpatriotic to be protesting this war at a time when American soldiers are in harm's way?
Certainly not. I think dissent and demonstrating and voicing your opinion and articulating a position is definitely the highest form of patriotism, I think.
With that in mind, tonight Max marched to a New York landmark, made famous by the end of a war, to protest the beginning of this new one.
We are telling the president, do not act in our name. This is not what we want.
From protests in this country, we turn now to Israel, and Israel has been on high alert for days now. Israelis have been told to keep their gas masks with them at all times. With the war going into its second full day, what's the situation there now? NBC's Martin Fletcher is in Israel tonight. Martin?
John, the Israelis are just waking up this morning. They're going to find the news of what's been happening in Iraq and Kuwait. And the fear here, of course, is that will it happen here? Will Israel become the victim of Iraqi Scuds? So far, the mood's pretty even, though. The people are just going around their daily lives, told by the government to continue as normal. Of course, what passes as normal here would be pretty weird elsewhere. Everyone's carrying gas masks with them. They've been told by the government to do that in case they're surprised. They should get a maximum of about 6 minutes warning if if a Scud is fired from Iraq. 150,000 people changed their gas masks yesterday, showing how people do leave things till the last minute. But many people are walking in the streets without their gas masks. They say, well, it probably won't happen. Things have been worse in the past, and Israel is just trying to continue life as normal, John.
How would you compare, Martin, the war now compared to the Gulf War back in '91 in Israel?
Well, yeah, sure. Well, I was here, of course, and the clear difference, of course, is that then 39 Scuds rained down upon Israel with regular conventional warheads. Nothing's happened so far. Right now, this is a country that is simply waiting for the worst, hoping it doesn't happen. And as the Prime Minister said, he said there's only a 1% chance or so that anything will happen. But Israel, he said, is 100% ready. You know, if there is a chemical attack, one security expert said to me, if it's going to happen anywhere, this is the place to be, because Israel really is ready. You know, you go to the hospitals here in Tel Aviv, there are hundreds of beds outside on the streets waiting to receive anybody that gets hurt. They've got showers in the streets ready to decontaminate citizens if they get hit by a chemical attack. Nobody would go inside the hospital until they've been decontaminated. Everybody has been told what to do. It's a nation that is really ready for the worst, knows what to do. In general, of course, if it really happens, we know people in this situation bound to panic, but Israel in general is ready as it can be, John.
Martin Fletcher in Israel. Martin, thank you very much. And joining us now from Israel is Iraq expert and NBC News analyst Amatzia Barome. He heads the Middle Eastern History Department at the University of Haifa and is a visiting fellow at the Brookings Institution in Washington. Professor, welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning, John.
Now, you predicted that Saddam Hussein wouldn't accept asylum to avoid war. Now, with the U.S. attack on Baghdad, what course do you see Saddam taking if he is alive?
Yeah, if he is alive. I think that right now Saddam has proved to us that he sticks to his guns in a sense. He sticks to his plan A. Plan A is to play the role of an innocent victim. And when you play the role of an innocent victim, you cannot push the buttons of chemical tipped missiles towards Israel, because that's not a victim. And you cannot use Scads anyway, because Scads are prohibited by the UN. Now, the scenario of Plan A is that Saddam needs to provide as many civilian casualties as possible for the consumption, for the benefit of the international television networks. He relies heavily on the help of demonstrators, like the young man we have seen just here, very impressive, and demonstrate in America and in Europe, anti-war Western, if you wish, circles, if you wish, lobby. He hopes that if the war takes longer than the Americans are planning, and if the civilian casualties are higher than the Americans are planning not to have any, of course, if they're high, then large parts of the community in the Western world will force Americas to stop the war. So that's Plan A, and right now, that's what he is banking all his hope on. There is Plan B and Plan C, but certainly Plan A is now fully fledged, in front of you. And the fact that Israel hasn't absorbed even one missile last night is a proof of that. I'd only say more, if one more night we don't see any missiles coming here, then I would say it's almost certain there will be no missiles on Israel at all.
A lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of uncertainty about Saddam Hussein right now. We still don't know the question about whether or not he's alive or dead. Amatzia Barome, our thanks to you in Israel. Now, it would not be enough for Saddam Hussein just to leave the country. You'll remember President Bush included his two sons in the 48-hour ultimatum as well. And here's why. Experts will tell you that the sons of Saddam are as feared and are as ruthless as the Iraqi leader himself. They've achieved their own special notoriety. Apparently, to know them is to fear them. Here's NBC's Hoda Kotb.
These are the faces of the next generation of terror. They are Saddam Hussein's sons. Uday, age 38, is a powerful member of parliament. Qusay, age 36, the leader of Saddam's military.
Saddam's sons are as dangerous as Saddam, and the sons have the potential to be even more dangerous than their father.
Con Coughlin is a British journalist and author of a new book, Saddam, King of Terror. He says the sons will play a key role in how this war unfolds.
Even at this late stage, I think Saddam and his sons believe that they can survive the current crisis.
Saddam's sons have spent a lifetime learning lessons on how to survive from their father. Uday was born in 1964, the first of Saddam's 5 children, with his wife Sajida. Coughlin says Uday's political education began early when Saddam was locked away in jail for trying to overthrow a rival party government.
His wife used to smuggle messages to him from his party colleagues in Uday's diaper. And from that moment, Uday was involved in the politics of Iraq.
In 1979, when Saddam seized power as president of Iraq, Uday was 15, but his reputation for violence was already well known. In high school, he reportedly beat his teachers and principal. In his early 20s, when he became head of the Iraqi Olympic Committee, the prestigious post became an outlet for Uday's growing ruthlessness. When the Iraqi soccer team lost an important match, the players learned the price for displeasing Uday.
They're all beaten severely on the soles of their feet, so that in some cases they couldn't walk for months.
As Uday's power grew, he became more brutal and out of control.
Uday is a deranged psychopath who has a great capacity for violence.
Over the years, much of that violence was directed toward women. There are reports of Uday snatching women from the streets, then raping and murdering them.
I am very sure that he lured some women in order to rape them.
Few people know Uday as well as Abbas el-Janabi. He was Uday's assistant for 15 years until he fled Iraq 5 years ago. He and others describe Uday as a serial rapist.
And this is not, you know, only one or twice or 3 times. This is regular in his life.
No one was exempt from Uday's cruelty. In 1988, he bludgeoned to death one of Saddam's closest aides, a man he believed had insulted his mother's honor. Years later, he even carried out murders against members of his own family. In 1995, 2 of Uday's brothers-in-law defected to Jordan. There, one of them revealed secrets about Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. Saddam lured them home, and Uday and his brother orchestrated their deaths.
They launched basically a military attack on the house with rocket launchers, grenades, heavy machine guns. They killed the sons-in-law, the father, and all the other relatives that were in the house. It was basically a massacre.
But that very same year, something happened that would alter the line of succession in Iraq. Assassins attacked Uday, shooting him numerous times. The attack left him partially paralyzed and some say even more unstable. Uday had become a liability for Saddam. The Iraqi dictator would still allow him to play an important role in the government, but Saddam reluctantly decided that Uday's brother, Qusay, would be a better choice as the future ruler of Iraq. At 36, just 2 years younger than Uday, relatively little is known about Qusay, but by all accounts, he is just as dangerous as his brother. Uday's former assistant says he closely observed Qusay and agrees when it comes to violence, there is little difference between Saddam's sons.
They are a copy, they are the same.
Iraqi experts say in this war, Qusay commands a force of at least 100,000 soldiers and intelligence officers loyal to Saddam. He is also responsible for protecting his father and his inner circle. Some say getting rid of Saddam is not enough.
We don't want a position where his sons could replace him. They are as tarnished as their father. They are as dangerous as their father. And they have to be taken out in the same way their father has to be taken out.
We return now to the ground invasion and the front line, and let's go back to NBC's David Bloom, who's with the 3rd Infantry. And David, give us an update.
Well, John, I just wanted to introduce you briefly to one of the stars of the U.S. Army. His name is Sergeant Major Bob Gallagher, and he's the one of the executive officers here as far as leading this force, this task force. And we're again with the 3rd Infantry Division, which is the lead element here. We're literally at the front lines in southern Iraq, waiting for the rest of the force to catch up with us. Sergeant Major Gallagher, how's the mission going so far? Great. Tell us about the opposition, the very light opposition you faced. Their mission at first was to take out 2 Iraqi observation posts with about 30 soldiers apiece in it because you didn't want them to relay messages back to Baghdad as to where you were coming in. So tell me, walk me through that. How did that take place?
Went according to our plan. Pretty smooth. Wasn't anything that we didn't expect.
We heard the reports on the radio about Iraqi Army division surrendering, the 11th Army Division, one of the 3 Iraqi Army divisions in southern Iraq. If those reports, and we're saying on a radio is military radio, if those reports are accurate, and we have no reason to believe that they're not, that's a good sign?
It'd probably be a wise thing for them to do.
And you can hear Trinity McLean, one of the other soldiers here, laughing about that because, clearly there's a sense, John, of optimism among these soldiers. They've faced only light opposition thus far. To the extent that there's heavy Iraqi opposition up closer to Baghdad, encircling Baghdad, they may confront that in the days to come. But as they say, so far so good for these soldiers on the vanguard of the U.S. movement into southern Iraq. John?
All right, David Bloom reporting with the 3rd Infantry in southern Iraq. David, thank you very much, and thanks to your guests as well. Now, they've grown up with the pretend violence of video games, but they have... Actually, before we do that story, let's do Colonel Charles Benson, Jr. He is the commander of the Air Force Weather Agency. And Colonel Benson, welcome. Thanks for being with us. Let's talk about the weather forecasting, how essential it is to this whole process.
Well, it's very essential, especially for the planning of military operations. And what we do is try to make sure the combat forces that are in theater have the very latest weather information, can use that to anticipate the weather trends and use that in the planning factors for mission execution.
Well, how's the weather been so far, and how's the forecasting, do you think, based on what you've seen, really helped make this operation work?
Well, I think it's been helpful. There were some serious problems with sand and suspended dust in the air yesterday, and I think that's been pretty widely reported. But I think that was anticipated. We've had pretty good luck anticipating the dust and sand events based on numerical weather prediction models and also high-resolution satellite imagery. So I think we've been fairly successful in anticipating when those events are going to happen. And the good news is it looks like the winds are going to lighten up over the next 2 to 3 days, and the chances of that happening over the weekend are probably diminished.
It doesn't look like they've had entirely clear skies over Baghdad during some of these bombing operations, though, has it?
No, there's been some scattered clouds. There's been some scattered high and middle clouds, and I would not be surprised if that continues over the next day or two, but we don't expect it to be widespread in the sense that it would cover the entire country, but there will be some middle and high clouds passing through from time to time.
What's the forecast for the next few days?
The next few days we anticipate again, some scattered clouds, and there may be some restricted visibility due to dust and haze in some areas, but it won't be anything like that we saw yesterday. And I think as we get into the weekend, the winds are going to continue to lighten up, and the visibilities ought to stay pretty good. And the next opportunity for that to go back down as far as visibilities would be sometime early next week. But the next 72 hours look fairly good.
Again, Colonel Charles L. Benson is with the U.S. Air Force Weather Agency. Colonel Benson, thanks for being with us. Now, they've grown up with the pretend violence of video games, but they have no real memory of war. How are U.S. teens reacting to this war? NBC's Josh Mankiewicz went to one high school to find out.
Let me see a show of hands. How many of you think the United States is doing the right thing by getting involved in this war? They are high school seniors, quite literally tomorrow's leaders. This is Ms. Hall's 5th period government class at Fairfax High in LA.
So I just feel that if the war was really needed, that the whole UN would agree with each other to do it.
How many of you think we're going to win? They were only 5 and 6 when the bombs fell on Iraq in 1991. More than a decade later, these well-informed students believe the U.S. will triumph this time as well. But they're not sure our president is making us safer. How many of you think that there's going to be terrorism here in the United States as a result of our starting this war? So what's the answer? Do you allow him to sort of stay in power because you're afraid of the effect of taking him out of power?
If we win, and Saddam Hussein is taken out of power, and we don't get no terrorist attacks, and the outcome is good. But if we do, then we have a serious problem.
So we're just supposed to take that type of risk?
So we just have to take the chance, and that's what Bush is doing.
There's no draft anymore, but how many of you would sign up for the military?
If I have the chance to take part in, making history and saving my country, saving my family, my friends, and the ones I love, I'll go for it. I'll do it straight up.
But he was the exception. If you're looking for dreamy idealism, don't look here. Most of these students are as distrustful of the president's motives as most Americans are of Saddam Hussein. More than a few think this war is about oil and Mr. Bush's image.
I think it's more about oil than anything else because oil is what we want and what we need.
How many of you think there's a connection between Saddam Hussein and al-Qaeda.
I don't feel that Iraq is a real threat to us. And if we were going to war because Iraq was a threat, then why aren't we going to war with North Korea? They're the real threat. Like, that to me ruins the whole argument.
They also don't trust us. How many of you think that we in the news media give you the straight story about what's happening over there? No one.
I think the press leads the charge in every war. I mean, propaganda is always something that, you know, fuels the fire.
And they think the first President Bush and President Clinton should have finished this job a long time ago.
10 years ago, when Saddam Hussein actually attacked Kuwait and started killing his people, that's when we found out that he was a brutal dictator. We could have finished him off then. We could have, like, made him step out then. Why did we stop?
And now, a generation that has never known a world without MTV has a televised war as a new and perhaps enduring fact of life.
It's really happening, and it's kind of scary.
And that's our report for tonight on this second war in Iraq. For the latest developments in this fast-breaking story, there is continuing coverage on cable, on MSNBC, and on the internet at msnbc.com. I'm John Siegenthaler reporting from New York, and for all of us here and overseas at NBC News, good night.
Good evening, and to our viewers on the East Coast, good morning. I'm Lester Holt. Here is the latest in Operation Iraqi Freedom. U.S.-led forces continue their ground assault from Kuwait into Iraq after a series of artillery barrages. British troops have stormed the Al Faw Peninsula at the head of the Persian Gulf. It's a key route for oil tanker traffic. Meanwhile, huge explosions heard near the southern Iraq city of Basra. U.S. intelligence believes Saddam Hussein and possibly both his sons were in fact inside the Baghdad compound struck by American missiles early Thursday morning Iraqi time. It is not clear if the Iraqi leader was injured or killed. Also, American officials believe that the videotape of Saddam Hussein broadcast after the strike may have been recorded prior to the attack. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld confirmed Thursday that the U.S. was in touch with Iraqi forces, including members of Saddam Hussein's elite Republican Guard, over how to surrender without a fight. NBC News is hearing preliminary reports of wide-scale surrender by elite Iraqi forces. Stay tuned to MSNBC for further details. We want to remind you, we recap the latest headlines on the Iraq crisis every 15 minutes at the top of the hour, 15 after on the half hour and quarter of the hour, right here on MSNBC. You can also log on to our website, iraq.msnbc.com, for complete coverage, as well as the Target Iraq Interactive Library. There's in-depth analysis, a slideshow, and video. It'll help you as we all walk through this together, this uncharted territory of America at war in Iraq. It's all at iraq.msnbc.com. Carl Rochelle is at the Pentagon tonight, where we're still processing news of the first coalition casualties in this war aboard a Marine helicopter that went down. Carl, what can you tell us about that?
Lester, I can tell you, unfortunately and quite sadly, apparently all 16 people on board that helicopter died in the crash. It was a CH-46 Sea Knight transport helicopter with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, which is out of Camp Pendleton, California. There was a 4-person Marine Corps crew on board. We believe the other 12 were all British, either Marine or British troops of some nature. The Brits do not, in fact, confirm casualties, but we are told that all 16 people on board that helicopter went down. It was in Kuwait, apparently on its way back into Kuwait from Iraq, where it was ferrying the British troops when it went down. No indication of enemy fire involved with it, nor indication of friendly fire, blue on blue, if you will, to use the military term for it. It likely is an accident caused by either mechanical failure, it could be weather, it could be pilot error. It is a terribly unforgiving environment, flying around in the sand, and it's difficult to see, and the sand does wear away on the equipment inside, the working innards, if you will, of the helicopter, the engine, and all of the control surfaces as it works around in that very fine powdery type sand that is so outstanding in that area. So it did go down, the loss of all life on board. We do not have identification of those killed because of the notification of next of kin, Lester.
All right, Carl Rochelle at the Pentagon with that sad news. Carl, thank you very much. Earlier this evening, we got some extraordinary pictures from on the front lines in southern Iraq. Two NBC News correspondents traveling with separate units who made it through the night into southern Iraq. I had a chance to speak with Kerry Sanders. He was with the 2nd Battalion of the 8th Marines. David Bloom with the 3rd Infantry Division, and General Norman Schwarzkopf was all a part of that conversation. Let's play it for you now.
We left from the Kuwaiti side of the border around 8:30 local time, around 12:30 in the afternoon New York time, but that was preceded by about a half hour of artillery shelling on 2 Iraqi observation posts. They were trying to destroy those observation posts and the 30 or so Iraqi soldiers who were inside each of those observation posts, because they wanted to make sure that they could not relay information back to Baghdad as to the precise location of this large movement by the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division. That was followed by us moving into Iraq. We crossed the Kuwaiti berm, which is about a 30-foot high wall of sand. They'd been cut through. Then we cut through electrical fences, and then we were onto the Iraqi side through a berm on the Iraqi side, which is also about 30 feet high. I can't tell, Tom, exactly what video you're seeing right now, obviously, but in addition to that, we went through minefields, and we also went through unexploded ordnance from the First Persian Gulf War. And what you may see are these orange or yellow or green lights, which allow us to make a track through there safely that the scouts had laid down so that these vehicles, which were the first vehicles to go through, could move through safely. So, Tom, right now we're into southern Iraq. We're with the, as I say, the 2nd Brigade, the Spartan Brigade of the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division. We're also with what's called the 315 Infantry, which are mostly the Bradleys and a tank platoon as well, carrying infantrymen who are out ahead, leading the charge, if you will, for the other larger mechanized units to follow on. Tom?
You're listening to David Bloom as he talks to Tom Brokaw in our New York studios. Again, David with the lead elements of the 3rd Infantry Division making his way now into southern Iraq and describing in great detail some of the obstacles they had to make their way through, including landmines being marked by scouts, and so far meeting no resistance as they began the push into southern Iraq. Let's bring back General Norman Schwarzkopf. General, thanks for your patience. Listening to that report, the fact they have not met any resistance of any kind, does that foretell what may lie in the future of this campaign?
Yeah, very possibly. You know, some of these units, although they're good units, aren't prepared to have a really tough fight. We ran into a lot of cases in Desert Storm where they fired about 1 or 2 shots and then took off to the rear as fast as they possibly could. The unit that the 3rd ID is going up against is supposed to be a very good unit. But that's by Iraqi standards, so it'll be interesting to see what happens if they ever close on them.
You say a very good unit. That would be a regular Army unit?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And then at what point would they expect to encounter Republican Guard, the elite troops?
Well, the information we had quite some time ago was that all the Republican Guard had been pulled back very, very closely into the Baghdad area to protect that area and be under command of Republican Guard generals. So I would expect that it'll be a while before they get into Basra probably pretty easily, but as far as going into Baghdad, that's another story.
Is it a pretty predictable route that they will take to Baghdad, or is there some flexibility to have still some element of surprise on any road march north?
No, I don't think there'll be any element of surprise. I think it's going to be a direct shot. Once Basra is sustained, and then they're going to turn around and head straight for Baghdad.
Just overwhelming firepower then.
Right, and we got great mobility. You know, as I've been saying all along, you got to have logistics follow-up. The logistical tail wags the operational dog, particularly with these armored units. So you have huge quantities of gasoline that you have to bring up to refuel them. You've got huge quantities of ammunition if they get into a big fight. Just to give you an idea, when we sent the units out west for the Hail Mary, we had to build up some log bases we had to send 36,000 gallons of fuel out there and 115 tons of ammunition just so that they could follow the troops and resupply them if necessary.
General, I know that generals have to make casualty estimates as they prepare a war plan. Tonight, a Marine chopper went down, 12 Britons, 4 Americans. What is it like as the person in charge of a command? You know you will lose people, but when you get that first report?
There's never, you know, some people use the term satisfactory losses. As far as I was concerned, there is absolutely no such thing as a satisfactory loss. The loss of one human life is one too many. Regrettably, in war, that's going to happen, and that's why, you know, once you're committed to battle, you want to get the war over as fast as possible, because that's one way of reducing your own casualties. But nonetheless, your heart goes out to those families that have just lost their loved ones.
General, I'll ask your indulgence here. We're going to go back to David Bloom. In fact, if we'll keep you in the conversation, if you'd like to ask him some questions. David, are you with us?
I can hear you.
Good. David, give us another account of how you made your way into Iraq.
What happened was around 8 o'clock local time, which is noon Eastern time, 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast. This unit, the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division, began shelling with artillery shells, the Paladins, huge 150 millimeter howitzer artillery. They began shelling 2 Iraqi observation posts just across onto the Iraqi side of the border, because they wanted to take out those 2 observation posts, which had about 30 Iraqi soldiers each in the observation posts, because they didn't want them to relay word back to Baghdad as to where these soldiers from the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division were crossing into southern Iraq. Now, after that happened, we then started moving, and we're with the Spartan Brigade, the 2nd Brigade, and the lead infantry unit, which is the 315 Infantry. These guys are literally the tip of the spear. We're out right now farther than any other American forces, or at least certainly any other Army forces, out here in the desert of Iraq. What they did was they first moved across the Kuwaiti berm. There had already been bulldozed holes cut in that berm. It's about 30 feet high. Then they moved across into through an electrical fence. There had been, basically large sections cut out of the electrical fence to allow the tanks and the Bradleys to sweep through, to roll through. And then we crossed through the Iraqi berm. And again, they'd already bulldozed through the hole in the Iraqi berm, which allowed us to get into the Iraqi side. Then we were on the Iraqi side, and we confronted a number of obstacles. Minefields, first of all, which the Iraqis had laid, but which the Americans had cleared a path through and had placed out lights. Basically, you may see in some of this video, some of these lights, orange lights, yellow lights, green lights, which allow them to safely travel through those Iraqi minefields, which have been cleared by the bulldozing and the anti-mine equipment. Then after that, we went through an area of ordnance. Basically, it's an area of unexploded ordnance from the first Persian Gulf War, where there were American warplanes that dropped on Iraqi tanks. We saw the charred remains of the T-72 Iraqi tanks, the BMPs, which are the Iraqi armored personnel carriers, again, from 12 years ago, from the first Gulf War. We wound our way through there, and then we came out into the open desert. Now, we have not encountered any Iraqi opposition, save for the forces those were at those observation posts, which were they not wiped out, frankly, by the Iraqi artillery, they were taken out by the U.S. infantry soldiers, who then moved in. We're right now the vanguard of the 3rd Infantry Division, and the other forces will be flowing through these 2 lanes now into southern Iraq to make their movement further north toward Baghdad.
And David, as we look at your picture, I'm told we also have Kerry Sanders I want to bring in, and producer's going to have to tell me which unit Kerry is with. David, you'll stand by.
I can tell you. The Marines.
Okay, Kerry, tell me who you're with, and roughly, to the extent you can, where you are.
We're with the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, and really can't say too much other than to say that if you've been watching the reports from David Bloom, we're not too far away from David Bloom. The Marines have suited up this morning, and they've put on what they call their mop gear. As a matter of fact, in a short period of time, a deadline's going to approach, and we also have to do the same. That is the charcoal-lined suit that is designed as protection against chemical and biological agents in the event that there is an attack. There were at least 3 incidents yesterday when the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines were moving, where they had to at least don their gas masks. They did this as they were traveling in some rather dusty and particularly hot conditions, which made it, for myself, extremely uncomfortable.
What's that?
I can tell you that the masks, when you put them on, initially begin to cause your face to sweat quite a bit. So it was quite an ordeal. In all three cases yesterday, it was information that was bogus, as it were. They were just relying on the preventative approach to this. On the side of the trucks, they actually have equipment that tests and smells the air to see if there is any sort of chemical or biological agent, a sniffer, as it were. What I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try and just give you a small picture. As much as I can't tell you where I am, I can try to provide you a little bit of a picture of what you can see out here. So let me just step out of the picture for a moment, okay? And I'm going to let you look past us just here for a moment. And you can see here, this is one of the command tents that's been set up. These can be set up in about 5 to 10 minutes in the field here by the Marines. And as we come back over this way, you can see some of the other elements that are also here. I'm going to also provide you a picture, if I can, and I'm sorry this is taking a little bit difficult, but we're going to sort of bring the camera all the way around here if we can. And we're in sort of a tight condition here. And I want to show you, this is what they call the CAT patrol. That's the folks who go out sort of as the screen in front of moving troops. And what you see right there are tow missiles on top of Humvees. And you can see that they're camouflaged. They've hardened the floors with sandbags. And the patrol that goes out would, if they move in a direction, would be right out there in front. It would sort of be the blockers on a football team, as it were. And you can see some of the units here. And again, you see everybody in their chemical, biological suits this morning. Now, we do have some news to report. There is apparently a battle for the Ramallah oil fields. We understand that at least 2 of the oil fields are on fire. I can report that we did see a glow that appeared to be those Ramallah oil fields at one point yesterday. There is also a report of a Black Hawk helicopter that is down. We do not have any information of known casualties or not. And finally, we can tell you that hiding in amongst the scrap yards of the old tanks that were dumped and left in the desert after the first Gulf War 12 years ago are T-72 tanks. The Iraqi military apparently has moved some of those tanks from their present-day military in to hide in amongst there. We know at least one T-72 tank has been taken out when it was firing. And finally, last night, a tremendous light show here, just a tremendous light show as we were watching the multiple launch rocket systems fire off in the desert here. Those rockets, of course, heading north. I think we may have some pictures of those. It was a continual firing throughout the night, so many that, in fact, we lost count. Lester?
Kerry, I'm going to ask you to stand by. I want to quickly go back to David Bloom. David, are you allowed to have your camera pan around? And as we do that, I want to ask you about the landmines. Were they more than the commanders expected, and will that continue to be an obstacle that will make you have to pick your way as you move north?
Okay, I'm going to ask my photographer, Craig White, to pan around here first because he can't hear what you're saying. So, Craig, go ahead and show a little panoramic view here. We're in an M88, which is a tank recovery vehicle, which you may see some of the soldiers who are here with us in the foreground. And then off in the background, you can see some of the lead elements of this force in Bradleys. Now, the Bradleys are the Bradley fighting vehicle, which is what the infantry soldiers, usually there are 8 or 9 infantrymen inside those Bradley vehicles. And then right in this tiny little group that we're in right here, there are not any tanks. You're mostly just looking at the Bradleys. And essentially, Lester, as to the minefields, we're clear through the minefield right now. We're into the southern Iraqi deserts. It's not a section that's mined. What they did was they heavily mined. I mean, keep in mind, Iraq has some 10 million mines. And what they did was they mined right along the border so that they could try to stop the American forces from coming through. But as I say, under the cover of darkness, they had cleared those minefields.
We noted all those vehicles are so spread out. Is that just standard defensive doctrine we're seeing there?
Sure, absolutely. You don't want to provide a target to the enemy, so you make sure you stay well spread out so that if they hit one vehicle, it doesn't take them all out.
And Kerry Sanders, as your camera panned around, we apparently were seeing the same thing. Was your progress also slow? Were you dealing with the landmine issue as well?
Well, I can't reveal too much about our location, but I can say that the landmine issue has not presented itself yet. And I think that you can begin to sort of connect some of the dots by what that means. I also have a little information, and this is information that, quite frankly, is still being sorted out, but it appears that the Iraqi 11th Infantry Division may have actually moved some troops to the south, and that is maybe what is going to be presenting a little bit of a push for the U.S. military.
And David Bloom, I know each unit has its own objectives. What sense do these troops have of the big picture? For example, did they see any of the warplanes or the Tomahawks? Do they have any idea what's going on the big picture with regard to this war?
We were told at a briefing by the commanders of the 3rd Infantry Division that you would actually see the American Tomahawk cruise missiles flying overhead us as they made their way toward Baghdad. But we were actually moving out ahead of the main part of the force. We did not see any of that last night. Excuse me. Our troops were concentrated on their mission, which was to clear, as they say, those 2 Iraqi observation posts so that they could not relay word back to Baghdad as to what the location of this large force from the 3rd Infantry Division is. I mean, these soldiers, when they begin a mission like this, are very, very focused on what their specific task is. Do they know what the big picture is? Yeah. Do they know what some of their possible missions may be? Yes. They know those things. But their first mission was to get across that Iraqi line as quickly as they possibly could, with the artillery leading the charge as far as taking out those observation posts, then the infantrymen moving in to make sure that they were all clear. Again, their biggest concern was one of intelligence. They don't want the Iraqis to know where they are in southern Iraq so that they can make their approaches to Baghdad through routes of their own choosing, rather than having those Iraqi forces know exactly where they are.
Kerry Sanders, the fact that you guys are now on the Iraqi side, what has that done to the attitude, morale of the Marines you're with? Clearly, they've been anxious to go for a long time. We're losing, Kerry, we're losing your audio. We'll get it fixed and let folks know we are pushing the edges of technology here. You're seeing new technology being fielded here as we are literally with the troops here in uncharted territory as far as this war. Kerry, we're back now. Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you. Go ahead, pal.
Okay. I'm back. Go ahead, Lester.
All right.
The question?
Yeah, the question, I forgot the question already, but the morale, the issue of morale, the fact that these guys are finally on the move here after waiting in that desert for so long.
Well, you know, these guys have been gone from Camp Lejeune since January 9th, so they have been, quite frankly, they've gone through that military hurry up and wait, and they've gone to the good to go, and now they're at the level where, quite frankly, the lieutenant colonel here, Royal Mortensen, says he exactly wanted them at. They're right at the peak. They are really where they should be. It takes a lot, you know, to get these guys basically through that long period. They've been living in some miserable conditions in the desert for more than a month, and so they are now loaded up, but they have trained. You know, it's interesting. 65% of the U.S. Marine Corps is age 22 or younger. These are very young men who are here, and they've been psyching each other up. There was a decided change when they knew that the war had started, and since then they have been nothing but business, and quite frankly, some of them have been very honest when they said, I wouldn't be a human if I wasn't a little bit afraid of this, but I'm also well aware that I'm trained. They say that they believe that they work for the best military in the world, and they talk about something in the U.S. Marine Corps called muscle memory, that they have done so much training that when they get into that situation where they're actually engaging the enemy, they don't even have to think about it. Their muscle memory will take over. They will do exactly as they're trained, and they likely are going to be tested to that, perhaps very soon, Lester.
David, was there an anxiety level as you folks were making your way across the border, and is that now relaxed now that you apparently are through the minefield?
You know, Lester, I can't tell you that we've been through that minefield, and I can't say that we have gone through that. So let's not sort of go through that area yet.
Actually, I was referring to David's group. I'm sorry, Kerry. David, go ahead.
That's okay.
What I was saying, Lester, was that the anxiety level yesterday, to the extent that there was anxiety level, had to do with the possible chemical gas attack that the horn sounded, and we all had to sprint for we had our gas masks on and had to put our chemical suits on, which of course we're still wearing. Kerry may have mentioned this, that they're going in what they call MOP 1, which means that we've got our chemical suits on, but we don't have gas masks on, we don't have our boots on, we don't have our gloves on. There was not so much an anxiety level with these forces as there was a sense of anticipation. Kerry mentioned that the Marines that he's with have been here since January. Elements of the 3rd Infantry Division have been here in Kuwait and now in Iraq longer than any other American forces since September and October of last year. So 6 months, going on 6 months, a lot of these forces have been here waiting to go. They firmly believe, and we've said this a lot over the last couple of days, that the only way for them to get home is through Baghdad. So now that the mission is underway and they've accomplished the first task of their mission, there is that sense of relief. They weren't too worried about this first part of the mission. It's the missions to come that they're more concerned about.
And David, we know that operational security is paramount, yet we are seeing this new relationship that both of you right now are showing us in its full glory. The fact that you have been taken, you're in the circle of trust, if you will, with the soldiers and Marines you are with. What is that relationship like? How has this test, this experiment gone so far in your view?
Well, let me answer that question as a journalist and answer it as just a person. I mean, as a journalist, obviously we're trying to maintain our objectivity and report factually what we see and hear here, and not to become one with the force, if you will, because we still have to maintain that appropriate journalistic distance. As a person, I can tell you that these soldiers have been amazing to us. They have done anything and everything that we could ask of them, and we in turn are trying to return the favor by doing anything and everything that they can ask of us. But as far as the relationship is concerned, we are about as one with this force as you could possibly be. We've been going out with these soldiers from the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division since December. We built relationships, we built trust, and I think that now they trust us and we trust them. Again, as a journalist, you have to maintain some distance. If there are problems that they encounter, we'll report those as well and let you know what's going on here, both the good things and the bad things. But just as a human being, they couldn't be any more generous, any more have embraced us into these units, because obviously our equipment, our presence can cause potential problems for them. It's cumbersome for them. There are 2 extra guys in this tank recovery vehicle that otherwise wouldn't be there. There are 2 more people they have to worry about feeding and clothing and all that. So that if you accept that they're willing to wrap us in their embrace, if you will, it's a relationship that so far has exceeded my greatest hopes.
It is an unprecedented kind of war coverage. David Bloom with the 3rd Infantry Division, Kerry Sanders with the Marines, General Schwarzkopf with us as well. David, we understand you have to move on. We'll let you go. Kerry, I'll get right back to you in a second, but I want to get General Schwarzkopf's view on this embedding of journalists. Do you think that this will, obviously it'll change the way we see wars. What do you think will be the overall impact when all is said and done?
Well, I think it's wonderful that we're having it this way. You know, it's a problem we've wrestled with for a very, very long time about how do you get reporting from the battlefield and yet at the same time make sure that you're not compromising things like that would give the enemy an advantage. And so I'm tickled to death that it's going the way it's going. I think that this may be the solution. I would only disagree with one thing. You know, if you ever read the book, We Were Soldiers Once and Young, this was Colonel Hal Moore and Joe Galloway, and Joe Galloway had a very, very close personal relationship with that unit and identified with the 1st Cav big time. So I think you don't necessarily have to maintain your objectivity totally as a journalist. I think you can use your heart a little bit with some of these guys you're dealing with.
I want to let Kerry Sanders weigh in with this. Kerry, tell me about your time with those Marines, and have you talked about some of those tough calls that may lie ahead when things get sticky?
Of course we have. I'm with the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines, and we've had those discussions because, quite frankly, nobody wants to have a surprise. Let me just give you a quick story here of just a conversation. You know, Marines are tough, and they don't want to project anything but how tough they really are. In an interview with one of the Marines here, the Marine actually got really teary-eyed talking about his family and took out a picture and just felt that what he was saying somehow, first of all, was not the image that he wanted to project, and second of all, the picture that he took out. Then he said, well, you know, if I actually became a enemy prisoner of war and somehow that tape got back, how that would affect him. You know, maybe I don't want that out there. So, you know, we sat and we had a little bit of discussion about that, and we came to what we felt was a compromise, that to show the tears in the eyes was to show the human side of who these people are, but not to show the picture of his daughter was perhaps something that made sense. We have often seen in previous wars, and General Schwarzkopf knows this, where people don't want even their last names used, just use their first names, especially the pilots in the event that they get shot down. So I would say working with the Marines here has been sort of a give and take, but it comes down to sort of a reasonable aspect here. I mean, I don't think that we're compromising our journalism in the process of doing this. We've had the tough discussion of what happens if Marines get wounded or killed here on the battlefield, what we're going to do and how we're going to handle that. And as much as I can tell you that we think we have a approach that we're going to handle with that, you don't know the situation when it happens. Our plan, were it to happen, and of course everybody hopes it doesn't, is to move away from the location where the injured, wounded, or dying are located, at least to a distance where we are not up so close to them that we're interfering with what they're doing, and second of all, where pictures would not in any way interfere with what they're trying to do, which is, God forbid, the Marine dies, that somebody at home is watching their loved one die. It's been a long practice at the network that when covering a war, you don't take the pictures, you don't notify basically the family of a loved one who has died in combat. So the way you do that,
Kerry Sanders, that's part of the extraordinary conversation I was a privilege to be a part of earlier this evening. Two of our correspondents on the front lines with the troops, the ground war well underway. They are there to capture it all. I'm Lester Holt. Thanks for being with me throughout this evening. Our coverage of Target Iraq does not stop here. Forrest Sawyer is up next with continuing coverage here on MSNBC. I'll see you later on.
And a very good morning to you, everyone. I'm Forrest Sawyer. It is 1 a.m. on the East Coast. Here is the latest in Operation Iraqi Freedom. U.S.-led forces continue their ground assault from Kuwait into Iraq. As you recall, there were a series of artillery barrages, the 3rd Infantry Division punching a hole and moving on up into Iraq.